Every once in a while, I nail it. I get something so right, so dead on accurate, it even scares myself. I think after I do something like I'm going to talk about in today's video, what if I was captured by the enemy? What if my awesome, unparalleled powers were used for evil? How would the world fare if I was ever turned against the good people of society and my powers fell into the wrong hands? And a perfect example of this is my video where I basically predicted every single plot point thus far in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reboot, Bel-Air. I nailed it in every way, and again, this video was shot well before the actual show came out, and like all of my videos, it was posted on Patreon before people on my regular YouTube channel could see it for early access, so my patrons can confirm I was on point with my predictions before the episodes were actually released. And speaking of Patreon, there's a guy who actually pledged to my top $100 tier annually, aka over $1,000, and I want to say thank you to that person. I forgot to ask you specifically if it was okay for me to mention your name. People often get really sketchy about whether or not you use their name in videos from Patreon, but I just want to say thank you. You pledged to the top tier for a year in one shot, and I'm actually incredibly impressed and honestly a little bit shocked. If you want to reduce your pledge, consider thinking about that. It's a little bit too much money, let's be honest. But now, with that being said, we are going to talk about how I nailed every single prediction on my predictions of Bel-Air and why I was so right about this show on the other side of this ad. So we're going to let it roll and I'll catch you on the other side. Our health is incredibly important and everybody knows that it's important. This is one of the reasons why it's so difficult to find good health information, good supplements, and what you should actually be doing. I know you guys have heard that eggs are bad and then they're good again and then they're bad again, and who knows where it's at right now, and don't even get me started on bread. This is one of the reasons why I like this product, C60 Evo. It's made from olive oil right here in the United States of America because there's claims about what it does. I've taken it and I felt the effects of what it does. And what those things are better energy in the morning. 1 teaspoon in the morning daily is what I'm on. And you don't get disrupted during your sleep like you do when you drink a bunch of coffee in order to get that burst of energy. And the great thing about this, the great thing about the products that are associated with me, is if you go to 360evo.com/AJW, then you can get 10% off a single order or 20% off a subscription order. Try it out. You'll like it. Made in America. Don't feel bad about buying it. C60evo.com. Now, before we get into my victory lap, before I explain to you how I was right about absolutely everything, including individual plot points that I mentioned as a throwaway throughout the course of my video, I want to not be a hater because people are accusing me of being a hater, drinking haterade all the time, and talk about the things that I actually liked and appreciated about this show, because they do actually exist, so credit where credit is due. And first and foremost, let's talk about the actor that plays Will Smith throughout this series. Now, this guy does not look like Will Smith to me, because I know what Will Smith looked like during the Fresh Prince series. However, he looks enough like Will Smith that when you're watching him and he does a damn good impersonation of Will Smith, you actually get lost in it and you think to yourself when you're watching the series, if this guy was playing a biopic version of Will Smith, he would be perfect casting. He's obviously talented, he obviously has worked hard on his Will Smith impersonation, and for a lot of the moments in the show, he can sell those Will Smith moments. Now, there's other problems with this character, and I don't like some of the choices, but those choices are the writer's choices, and in terms of acting ability, this guy is doing it even when the writing is lacking, and credit where credit is due. I talked about how he can't emulate the charisma of Will Smith. That is true to a certain extent, but he probably gets a lot closer than I possibly thought was even humanly possible throughout his portrayal of this character. Number 2, one of my favorite things about this show, and something that I didn't even think about, is the guy that they got to play the new Jazz. This guy reminds me of Jazz so much when I'm watching him that I felt he was this character before I even heard him introduce himself. And his introduction is hilarious because this guy says his name is Jazz, spelled with 2 Z's, aka the normal way that you spell jazz, but he's like, I've never been to Utah though. Which is just hilarious in every possible way, and it's even more hilarious because he actually runs a record store that was handed down to him by his father that he keeps in honor of his father. So they've actually found a way to add character depth to this character that was a joke throughout the course of the series, a good character that was hilarious. And it works in a lot of different ways. There's like a whole sequence where Hillary's trying to get him on Instagram. And of course, Jazz would not be on Instagram. He wouldn't know anything about Instagram. So this guy is really selling this character. And as a modern reboot, a gritty reboot, a more non-comedic reboot of the character, I think better than anybody else, this guy hits all those notes. And because he's a little bit older than Will Smith, who actually gives off the vibes of a 16-year-old, which is good because he's supposed to be playing a 16-year-old, his character works really well. Now, there's a white guy character that was Will Smith's friend in the original show. That's his friend here. They literally made him a communist. The first thing he says is that time is constructed by the capitalists in order to exploit labor, and that's why Will Smith becomes friends with him. So that guy's terrible in every way because communists are horrific, disgusting people. But Jazz killing it in this show, and credit where credit is due. This actor, I would actually watch him in other things. I wouldn't go out of my way to spend money to do it, but I actually look forward to seeing him in other things because he just nails it even more than the Will Smith impersonator nails it. And he even kind of looks like him. He's not wearing the shades, so it's hard for me to actually see it, but you get the feel of Jazz from this character. So again, credit where credit is due. You gotta be fair when you need to be fair, and this guy is deserving of it. Now, that being said, we're gonna start with the things that I emphasize the most, and the first thing that I wanted to emphasize was the absolute badass that Jeffrey has been converted to, the house manager, aka Idris Elba, as I was calling him in my previous video.
Jeffrey Thompson, house manager.
Know why I'm here from Philly?
Scrapping the bull court. Got nasty.
Who do that? Was it you?
Now some bad man from Philly, he want to deal with you.
Now, I nailed this so much that it actually made it into the show. Before I released my video, this line was not recorded by any of the characters, but the actors and the writers saw my video, saw that I was nailing every aspect of their series, so they actually have Will Smith call Jeffrey Idris because he's clearly and obviously so similar to Idris Elba, and again, that's just me nailing it in every possible way. I got this guy perfectly, and by the way, he is more of a serious type of guy who runs security, not the butler like he was in the original series. So everything about this character I absolutely nailed. I nailed it from little bitty lines in the series, and he is exactly as I would predict that he was based on his delivery of a couple of lines. And even Will Smith, the character in the show, acknowledges exactly what I was pointing out. The second thing that is clear and obvious is Carlton and the whole thing with privileged white. So, I talked about this character and how he was dancing and how Will Smith was getting angry at him dancing.
Look around. These are my people.
What? So, although we only got a snippet of this, I will say that this is the evil white bad guy because every show needs an evil white bad guy, and this guy's blonde hair. I think he has blue eyes. I don't really remember. I was looking at it before I started shooting this video, but he was dancing or something. Now, I'm not sure, but I'm gonna guess that he was either mocking Will Smith or he was participating in some form of cultural appropriation, or he was singing along to a black song that he just didn't know what he was doing, and Will Smith confronted him, and he's like, "What? How dare you? Don't come at me. I'm white privilege, man." And I said in my video that this guy was obviously singing along or doing something that was considered a part of black culture, and Will Smith was angry at him because he didn't have the right to do that thing related to black culture, and he would be mad at Carlton because Carlton wasn't authentically black and he wasn't living up to that, and he was essentially somebody who was a white person in black skin. And they actually referred to Carlton as a sunken place member, which just goes to show you how Jordan Peele's movie is just used as an insult in the black community post the movie actually being released. Well, it turns out not only did I nail this, but the show went a bit more extreme than I possibly thought. Because what this guy's doing in this scene is singing along to a rap song. You know what's in a rap song? The N-word. So he's saying the N-word, and Will Smith is angry about him saying the N-word. Now, in an intelligent show, in a smart show, in a show that actually wants to discuss the issues in a fair-minded way, there would actually be an interesting debate, and Carlton brings up some of the points in this interesting debate about how it's in the song. These people are marketing these songs to everybody and making a ton of money off of selling it to white kids. So how can you sell them a song and then get mad at them for singing along to the song? It's not like you're using it in a negative context or anything like that. Now, this is the point that Carlton brought up. This should have led to an interesting debate and all that. The thing is, and Will Smith's character, by the way, uses the N-word all the time. He used it against Carlton, and Carlton even pointed out that all of a sudden, when you want to use that word to hurt people, it comes out of your face and it's totally fine. However, in this show, there is absolutely no debate. Will Smith says, Carlton, you're not really black because you let that happen. You're a clown, and the issue is settled. If somebody who is black sings the N-word in a song and they sell you that song, you're still not allowed to sing it. You're supposed to give them your money, support their operation, but never sing along to the song because that is the correct progressive position. There is no debate. Carlton is shown as a total buffoon and a race traitor for not agreeing with Will Smith because Will Smith knows all. By the way, this show is produced by Will Smith, so unsurprisingly, Will Smith knows all. Also, Will Smith is comedically angry in this. It's not intentionally played up for comedy, but his character is always angry. He punches this guy days later based on the fact that he's angry that he was singing the N-word in a song, and later on, the show tries to justify retroactively Will Smith assaulting him without cause due to the fact that he's incredibly angry, some would say stereotypically angry, and inappropriately angry throughout the course of this show. So how do you do that? How do you justify Will Smith freaking out, spazzing out about somebody singing along to a song, and then assaulting a person days later based on the fact that he's uncontrollably angry about these instances? Well, what you do is you have this white guy, privileged white, the character that we were talking about that represents white privilege, literally plant drugs on Will Smith and then tell the security guard to stop that black guy because he's an evil white racist, and Will Smith getting framed for a crime that he did not do. You can always tell a strong writing team by the fact that when they bring up a controversial issue, when they bring up something that has arguments on both sides, how they obviously turn one of the characters into a mustache trolling villain because they don't want to actually construct sensible arguments against one side of the conversation. So that is what we see right there with Privileged White. He's such a bad guy. He got Will Smith suspended, but don't worry, Uncle Phil, not a judge, as I called in my review of the trailer of the series, he's actually a Benjamin Crump style race grifting lawyer, and that's how he got all his money. So he gets Will Smith out of the suspension because that's what kind of guy he is. Not even Privileged White, the representation, the manifestation of white privilege, can hold Will Smith down because he's got Benjamin Crump as his lawyer. Now look, I want you guys to know that what I did was not that impressive. I want you guys to know that what I did was not some spiritual communication with the ether, seeing into the future based on the fact that I have these powers and this vision that not everybody in the world has. All I did when I saw the trailer was analyze the scenes that were shown to us and then sit down and think to myself, what's the worst, blandest, dumbest, least thoughtful choices that the writers can make related to this series based on modern woke politics? And I put them out in the video and I nailed it every single time. It's not creepy. I'm not a wizard. I don't have magical powers. Everybody calm down. However, there is one instance in my video that I will get credit for. And I will demand that credit from you guys out there in the audience. And that is when, out of nowhere, I brought up the fact that Will Smith had this emotional moment in the original series where he speaks about the feelings related to his father. And this was Will Smith the person, through Will Smith the character, talking about how he feels about his father leaving him and his lack of a relationship with that person. It's one of the most powerful scenes in the original Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and I talked about how that was built up over time and that was earned by Will Smith's character there, and I compared and contrasted that to this show based on the trailer, and I talked about how this show would not be able to earn those kind of moments in the same way that the original series did, despite the fact that this series is portrayed as a drama. So theoretically, you should be able to build up to that more because emotional moments in sitcoms are often not good, which again goes to the credit of that original scene in the original Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It also had its emotional moments, which we'll talk about later, because based on the comedy framework, those emotional moments actually had significantly more weight because when they happened, they weren't being forced. They were something that happened due to the story actually happening, and a lot of it was tied to outside things, like Will Smith's actual feelings about his father in one of the most famous scenes in the show. Well, wouldn't you know it? The exact scene that I was talking about, the exact scene that was earned by the Fresh Prince, the exact scene that was a manifestation of the feelings of the actual Will Smith portrayed on screen, appears in the first episode of this show. Will Smith talks about how he has no daddy, and he freaks out, starts crying, and he's angry, and how he doesn't need any father figure in his life when Uncle Phil says, "Listen, son," and he's like, "I'm not your son, I don't got no daddy."
I can handle mine. I ain't never had no daddy. I've been my own man.
It's totally unearned, it's totally ridiculous in every way, and as if I could see into the future, as if I got a crystal ball in the back of the trunk of my car, I was able to mention this in my video, and it was reflected by this show within the first episode in an unearned way, the exact way that I was talking about it in my original video. That's amazing. That's impressive. I will take credit for that. Everybody, listen to me. I could see the future. I got magic powers. Ask me for the lottery numbers. No, wait. Give me money and I will give you the lottery numbers. I'm sure they will be accurate. By the way, this is not a guarantee in any way. If you give me money and the lottery numbers don't work, don't get mad at me. Yeah, I just nailed it. And I mean, come on. Nothing is more impressive than that. You are stunned by how I am impressing you with my ability to see the future. Now, with all that being said, I need to point out that Ashley is a lesbian, and of course that makes sense because one of these characters had to be turned into one of the LGBT XXIIJ thing. It's obviously cliche and obviously expected. And Hillary, despite the fact that they're trying to make her a businesswoman and somebody who's going out to be an influencer, is actually a bigger spoiled brat than she was in the original series, because in the original series, people acknowledged she was a spoiled brat. In this series, she's a YouTuber, one of the worst professions that there absolutely is. She has about 70,000 subscribers, and for some reason, she's not able to make any money on 70,000 subscribers, even though she does premium content, which is cooking content, which gets higher CPM than something like political content. So she should be actually doing pretty well, but apparently she made no money at all on YouTube with 70,000 subscribers, and that's a big problem. So Aunt Viv goes out to one of the members of her sororities to try to get Hillary a job. And during the course of this job interview, where of course Hillary is a cook, they make her an offer because they're actually impressed by her food. However, they have some terms and conditions, and the first one is easy, and it actually makes sense. They want to have approval over the clothes that she wears because they say they don't want the clothes to outshine the food because they're a company that emphasizes food. They also want approval over the recipes, and this is where things get problematic. You see, every scene in this show is about racism. Every single moment in this show is about racism. Will Smith is in favor of defunding the police. He literally outright says, and by the way, because Will Smith is a producer on the show, this is reflective of Will Smith's opinions, that the police are evil. Anybody who supports the police or Blue Lives Matter or is a conservative is a racist. Again, this is literally stated in the show. So racism is everywhere, but it's also present in the Hillary trying to get a job interview with the food magazine. So they tell her that the food is too spicy and they need her to tone it down. But Hillary, strong black woman, Instagram influencer, a Gen Zer, says she's not going to tone it down because she makes authentic cuisine and her family loves it. So then these evil white racists at this food company look her dead in the face and they say, "Your family isn't our target demographic," aka black people are not who this company is interested in serving. So Hillary does not stand for it. She walks out of the interview. She tells her mom that she didn't like the terms that she was brought up to. And her mom says, well, why don't you just negotiate the terms like an adult? Because, you know, you got an offer, you can make a counter offer. If they're interested in you, you can compromise and meet them halfway. But Hillary doesn't do that. Hillary goes on Instagram, tries to cancel them because they're racist. And then the owner of the company, who's Aunt Viv's friend from her sorority, who's a black woman, confronts Aunt Viv and Hillary based on the fact that she accused the company of racism based on this interaction, and she accused them publicly in order to shame them. Now, Aunt Viv initially is angry because, you know, adults would normally be angry at their kid if they went out of their way to set up an opportunity from them and then they made them look bad. But it turns out when all the black women in the black women's sorority watch Hillary's Instagram video, they realize that Hillary is stunning and brave and canceling people is good. It's great. It's fantastic. Now, of course, just like the other issue that we talked about earlier in the series, they never actually address the consequences. They never actually give a fair reading to the other side, and they don't show the effect that it had on the company for people to experience them being targeted by an Instagram influencer. So they just blindly praise cancel culture, and all the older women are like, wow, You young kids are so great, you don't tolerate casual racism. And Hillary is basically declared a hero by all these elderly black women, which again is them just embracing cancel culture, which I can't wait for the cancel culture to affect the Smith family, since they're paying for this in such a benign and again, not well thought out way, not fleshed out way, and not in a way that actually gives any air or any positive coverage or any fair coverage to the other side. So while Jazz is one of the best characters throughout the course of the show, the absolute worst character in the show by far and away, besides Privileged White, because Privileged White has white privilege and white privilege makes you evil, look at his face, he has white privilege, is Hillary. She's a brat, and she has one of those anti-character arcs that we see in a lot of modern movies and TV shows, where all she has to do is realize how awesome she is, and the world will bend to her, rather than her actually having a character arc. It's the antithesis of a character arc. It's embarrassing, and if I would have thought Hillary would have been more of a character in this show, I probably would have made predictions based on her, but let's be honest, I am not a magical being. I probably would have got her wrong because I didn't think they were going to make her even more of a brat because they were trying to undo negative characteristics of the show. I mean, Carlton is almost the exact opposite of Carlton from the comedic show. She's just a worse brat, a Gen Z brat with an Instagram handle, and it's really ridiculous. But hey, those are just my thoughts on the early episodes of Bel-Air. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Did you even watch the show? Are you interested in watching the show? What do you think of the Will Smith impersonator? What do you think of my take on Jazz? What do you think about my take on anything? About me having magical powers? Whatever. Let me know in the comments, blah, blah, blah. If you like the video, show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on all my social medias. You can support me via the support links in the description box. This has been me talking about Bel-Air and how I nailed every single prediction. Till next time.